we are really setting ourselves up for failure because we haven't thought through a framework and how we're going to build our own relationship and what we're going to model it after. I'm Christopher Gill, and I've spent time thinking about relationships, studying them. I want to be your best friend, your brother, your daddy, and I hope that we can continue growing and talking about anything. Let's dive in. Today we're going to be talking about one of the hidden ways and one of the hidden reasons most relationships fail, and how you're doing this subconsciously every single day, and you've been doing it for years, and until you put a line in the sand, say no more, you're going to keep repeating this pattern. Do you have relationships that work? Are you successful in relationships? And if you're not, have you sat and thought through what is going on? And if you continually come to the conclusion that the problem is with the other person, realize they are not the constant in all your relationships. You are. So the issue may be internal with you. And before you start beating yourself up and getting all down in the dumps about how failed you are and how bad you are at relationships, realize that this may not even be your fault. So I want you to do something with me for a second. This is something that really changed my view and perspectives on relationships and really helped put me on the beginning of a much better path. I thought and said, okay, where do I get when I think of a perfect or beautiful or amazing intimate relationship, what picture comes to mind? Is it the picture of your parents? Is it the picture of your favorite movie star in that romantic comedy that you love? Is it a boss? Is it a friend? Where do you get your image for what a perfect, successful relationship looks like? Okay, so you have that in your mind, right? Or hopefully you have a semblance of that in your mind. Now think through some of the parts of that relationship that you like, that you know about that you like, because there's plenty that you don't know about that you probably wouldn't like. And then think through what of these things about the relationship stand out and what do you want to have in your relationship. So this is a perfect relationship. It's an image of a perfect relationship. And then you're trying to dissect the pieces of that relationship and think through what of these am I taking and incorporating into my own life. And then you need to think through, of those pieces that you've taken out of these modeled relationships, what of them are you incorporating and are you using to determine whether a relationship that you're considering getting into is potentially going to work? Is it being set up from success from the outset? Do you have a framework? Is it something that you're like, oh, well, we have chemistry. This person matches some of these external qualities that I like. He's tall, she's smart, she's a lawyer. Whatever it is for you that gets you going, that turns you on and makes you wanting to connect further with the person, do those have anything to do with this modeled relationship that you've concocted in your mind? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I think the point that I'm getting at here is that many of us, don't have a relationship framework to work off of. When we do that exercise, very little comes to mind, and the things that you may think, oh yeah, I like their relationship, if you really step back and start thinking about it, there are probably a lot of toxic qualities in that relationship. They're like, oh man, I definitely don't want that. Which is why I was saying, hey, we need to dissect the pieces of this relationship that work or don't work. And so if we're struggling to even come up with an example of what we think in our minds is a good relationship, we're then struggling to pull the pieces out of that relationship into something that's actionable. We are really setting ourselves up for failure because we haven't thought through a framework and how we're going to build our own relationship and what we're going to model it after. I believe that modeling and vision and having something that you're trying to start with the end in mind is an incredible, important part of success in general, but absolutely in intimate relationships. And then you really need to also think through, what are the pieces of this relationship that I now want to leave out? But if you're not really being mindful of the things that you're permitting to remain in the relationship, you're going to set yourself up for a position when one of those things comes up that you don't like, but you thought you were modeling after a relationship you did like. Now, instead of saying, okay, there's something wrong with my framework, or there's something wrong with how we've connected in this specific area, we assign blame to the entire relationship and we say, oh, well, this relationship obviously isn't working anymore, or it was never going to work, or it's his fault, or it's her fault, or it's this fault, or it's that fault. And it puts all of the blame on externals instead of saying the blame is really this internal thing. And at the end of the day, it's not even an internal thing with you. It's an internal thing with how you began and approached the relationship to start. So I'd really challenge you to spend time thinking through your relational framework and what you are doing to decide whether a relationship is something that you want to push forward and try to make work or not. You need to think through where you're getting your relational modeling. What are you patterning your relationships off of? That's extremely important. What are the good pieces of that? What are the bad pieces of that? The bad pieces, why they don't work in your framework, right? So obviously they work in a relationship that you're seeing modeled, which is great. That's a wonderful thing for them. But you also have to realize that you are not the people in that perfect relationship. You are you. And then you're building your framework with someone else who's not those two people. So things that may work in that relationship will not work for you. So you cannot carte blanche take a quote perfect relationship and say, well, I'm just going to have that. I realized as I was growing up that many of the things about my parents' relationship, although extremely beautiful, they've been married for over 30 years. I'm the second oldest of 10 kids. I was homeschooled, and there was so much love around my house. And they really tried to pattern a loving, inclusive household. And that's what I started trying to pattern my relationships off of. That was the container I tried to put myself into. And I realized pretty quickly that there were some major things about that relationship that would never work for me because I'm a completely different person than my parents. And that if I try to have that framework, I am going to have successfully failed relationships, successfully failing relationships if I'm trying to pattern my relationship off of their successful relationship. Think through the framework that you have. I want you to do something for me. I want you to write in the comments, Christopher, I will develop my own relational framework, because I want you to have an ability to think through and evaluate people as they come into your life in a logical way. The emotions are going to be there. That's the fun part, but you need to have a way to evaluate things from a logical standpoint that you need to have developed before the relationship, and you really need to spend time thinking about this so you know your non-negotiables. Hope this was helpful. Hope we can continue building better relationships together. I'll see you in the next video. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, getting any benefit at all, please subscribe and hit the like button. I want to stay connected with you. I want to keep diving deeper into human connection and relationships with you. And I want to share this message with more people who need to hear it.